I'm taking the team total. I'm taking first quarter, first half, full game, taking it all. OU all the way. I lost so much money on OU.
Whoa, he has trouble with the stick, and the ball is free. Can't start from all crazy.
And they run through our ass like shit through a tin horn, man.
That is a disgusting act by Randy Moss.
What is up, and welcome to Not Another CFB Pod, the weekend review edition. We're going to be talking about Super Wildcard weekend. It was an electric weekend of football. We got a bunch of spaces off on Twitter. Those were really fun. Had people jumping in. We won big bets. Like we had a first touchdown in the Bills game, Dawson Knox plus 700. The boys cashed that. It was really fun. So it was a great weekend of football. This is going to be a really fun show. We got to check in. How's our guy Beast doing right now?
Doing good. I felt like it was a great weekend of football.
Yes.
It's kind of funny because after that first day, or like after the first game, I should say, you know, vibes were a little bit low. 49ers had blown it out. And I was a little worried entering that Jacksonville and Chargers game because that was a 27-point game. And from that point on, I felt like that Saturday night game leading into those Sunday games, there was a lot of really good football.
Yes, we were absolutely treated to an incredible weekend of NFL football, and that's why you got to give a shout out to the NFL. As much as I love college, as much as you love college, sometimes like for the national championship, for example, it doesn't live up, and that happens in the NFL a little too. But more often than not, you get these insane comebacks, close games, down to the wire, Hail Mary attempts that just barely don't get caught. So I can't wait to start the show. I guess the way we should do it, let's just go chronological. That's kind of what we do. And it's kind of the first game, let's be honest, it wasn't the best game.
Yeah.
49ers whooped up on the Seahawks, 41-23. You know, in that first half, that second quarter, specifically for the Seahawks, I was like, dang, we're going to have a ball game right here. But 49ers, man, especially in the fourth quarter, but the second half in general, just a much better team. Clearly, 41-23. I mean, that says a lot. That's a lot of points to score in the playoffs. We were low on the Seahawks. You know, that should have been the Lions. And Lions definitely would have made it a more entertaining game than that, I feel like. And maybe it's just because I'm a big fan now, but that's just how I feel.
Yeah, truthfully, I mean, it'll be like all bias, in that. I do think the Lions could have, made it a game. But I'll be honest, the Lions probably lose that game too. I shouldn't say probably. Like, I'm almost certain they would have lost that game too. I just think San Francisco's defense, when they're playing at their best, is just so good. And we've talked about every single week. But that's the story with them because I know they put up a ton of points, but the defense in that second half is what was really standing out to me. Obviously, like there's the late touchdown, so they did allow 6 in the second half, but it was almost a shutout in the second half. You know what I mean? It pretty much was. And when that defense was putting that much pressure on Geno Smith and just they were stopping everything, it felt like in the second half. They're a tough team, and that's why they're one of the favorites. You know what I mean? So it was a dominant win in all fronts, I would say.
Yeah, once that second quarter got out of the way, the others were much better. So, shout out to the 49ers. Looked pretty good. Brock Purdy had a pretty solid performance as well. 3 TDs from the boy. He's got a nice job. He's got a great job. I'm sure a lot of guys would like to have his job, but hey, he's putting the ball where it needs to go. So gotta give a shout out to him. They've got a little tougher test next week, but we'll see how that goes. Let's move down. We got Chargers, Jaguars. Now, you alluded to it a little bit in kind of the preview there. It was 27-0 at one point in this game. Jaguars come back in Jacksonville, all the way back, 31-30. I at one point, because I was on Jags plus 2.5, at one point was kind of in this group chat with the boys, and I was like, was Jags plus 2.5 the worst bet of my career? And then it turns around and ends up being a winner for us. But again, another high scoring game. We had lots of those this weekend, which I think adds to the excitement a little bit when the offenses are really going. But man, Jaguars in that second half, they made the adjustments. I know we had somebody in one of the pregame Twitter spaces talking about how big a deal the coaching was in this one. The difference in a guy who's won a Super Bowl and a coach that probably shouldn't have a head coach job still, and that's kind of what happened in that second half. I think I saw the Chargers ran the ball with a 20-ish point lead in the second half. They ran the ball 4 times. I believe that's the stat.
Oh, it had to have been. It was a ridiculous change from the first half to the second half. That was actually probably one of my best hits of the weekend. Was I just live? I was like, you know what? Like they were down 17 at the point that I took the Jaguars, but I took them plus 750 after they went down 17, and I'm like,
nice.
I think they could do it. Like it was 17-0, so it was a pretty big gap. But then they immediately threw an interception, so I thought I was done. Same thing, like you said. I was in the group chat, like, well, guess I just burned my money. You know what I mean? And it worked. It was awesome. It was probably the most fun bet that I had, just watching that come all the way back from 0. But the thing that I took out of that, and I wrote it down, was that Trevor Lawrence's second half of that game was just elite football. That's what we wanted to see out of him all game. He threw for 211 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, and his passer rating in the second half was 150.9. So, like, not to say that he's going to put that up, next week, but 3 touchdowns and a half is pretty damn good football. And he didn't play like he did. They don't win that game. It took every single ounce of him in that second half, and they still barely won.
Yeah, they just went down and kicked the last-second field goal there to win it. And I don't know, it's kind of a sidebar. Did you see all the people complaining about the call and stuff?
Yeah,
all night, and it was worse than I remembered. I was listening to a podcast today, and they went back and replayed it, and they're like, "And he hits the field goal to win it, but there's a flag, and then they're like, offsides on the defense, it's declined, the game's over." Okay, the Jaguars win. It's like, man, that sucks for them. Like, I don't know if the commentary guys just really didn't want to see Jacksonville in the second round. I don't know, but for whatever reason, it's a sidebar. It didn't affect the game at all, obviously, but kind of funny that whenever something like that comes to the light, it's
I saw people tweeting after the game, like, if the Chargers won, it would be a better matchup next week. I'm like, yeah, but they didn't. And how would we even say that? Like, they just blew a 27-point lead. How would you think that that's going to fare well against the Chiefs or whoever? You know what I mean? Like,
I think they do play the Chiefs. Yes, they play the Chiefs.
So
yeah, then they would have to take that performance, blowing a 27-point lead into Kansas City, dude. Like, you can't.
Yeah, so I'm like, dude, just be happy for the Jaguars. Like, if anything, it's another young quarterback. Yeah, it's Trevor Lawrence, probably shaking off some of those first half jitters. Maybe comes into next week hot. So I liked it. It was a good win, man.
It was a fun game. Great hit for the boys. That the post game Twitter space was electric. It was a lot of fun. I don't know. I know our guy Southie Sharp popped in there screaming and hollering, and it was just really fun. So that was great, and it set us up for a great Sunday, and we did have a great Sunday. The first result was Bills-Dolphins. This game was a lot closer than I thought, man. I had Bills in a teaser, like -6.5, and to me, that was as free as some of the other ones I had, which were closer to even. I was like, that's the game I'm least worried about. But you got to give it to the Dolphins, man. They traveled, and that first quarter was not good. I think they looked up in the second quarter and were down 17-0. And then they went off in that second quarter offensively, figured some stuff out, got some turnovers. I think Josh Allen threw two interceptions and lost a fumble is what I believe. He had 3 turnovers total. So that obviously hurt him a lot. And listen, that was like the Bills' worst punch. Like, they were not themselves, and they still, at the end of the game, I wasn't really worried they were going to lose it. It was just more of like, are they going to cover my little teaser, 6.5? But good win for Bills. I think they had some jitters too in that first matchup. That you kind of want to just get your confidence going. Okay, now we're in the playoff. We've won a game. Like, let's keep this thing rolling. Let's go. Because the Dolphins, they didn't go away, and so you got to give a shout out to them for that.
Yeah, shout out the Dolphins. The one thing I noticed that was kind of an interesting strategy, just because I feel like everybody always wants to be so aggressive against the Bills, is the Dolphins settled for a couple field goals in the first half. They went down 17-0. And then they kicked a field goal, and then another one, and then another one. And it's next thing you know, it's 17-9, which still doesn't feel like a threat to the Bills at that point.
Yeah.
But it's an 8-point game. And then next thing you know, they get a touchdown. And like from that point on, they just kind of hung around. but it was a little bit different. I was like, huh, typically like I feel like everybody always thinks you got to be super aggressive against the Bills and you got to try to just keep up with them on like, a ton of touchdowns. And the Dolphins were like, hey, like we'll take our 40-yard field goal. Like that's chill with us. And like they hung around because of that. Like if they would have went for a couple of those fourth downs, maybe you don't get it. You come away with nothing. So it was a little bit different, but got to give them credit. Tough matchup for them to be traveling to Buffalo and to put
going to Buffalo on their third string quarterback and getting as close as just about anybody's been all year. So love to see it, but I was glad to see our Bills moving on. I did have, so I had, it was Bengals, Bills, and then 49ers in a parlay money line in a parlay. And then, it was like minus 150. So that was one of the ones you kind of just load up on and hopefully it's a free bet. And then the other thing I did was I did those same things, but in a teaser and like a 7 point, and it was plus money, but it wasn't a lot. And so anyway, I ended up going big on both. So at least I hit the money line one with the Bills winning there. So that was a big deal. Okay. So let's move down the slate a little bit. This is a result that I feel like a lot of people were saying was going to happen. And then there were others who were like, no, I don't know. I don't know if they're real or not. The Giants upset the Vikings in Minnesota, 31-24. Rip in peace to our good friends in the group chat, the good Vikings fans. But I think they knew this was coming. I think Giants were 3-point underdogs. Right away, that's probably a pretty big red flag. If you're this big favorite and you're at home and all of a sudden it's only a 3-point game, like, I think a lot of people saw this coming. If I'm not mistaken, I think maybe even you had you had the Giants on the money line, maybe, or
I didn't. I didn't have anything on it. I kind of wanted to. But...
We took some props on this one, which I think one of them was Saquon touchdown, which was easy.
Yeah. Yep.
So that was a good hit for us. And then I sprinkled something else, maybe a Jefferson TD or something. So we hit that as well. It was a little bit of a sprinkle because somebody in the replies, I think it was our guy Cheapy13, who's a big Vikings fan, said to add a touchdown for Diggs, and luckily that hit. But as far as the game went, got to give a shout out to the boys. The Vikings had a great season, but Daniel Jones and his guys came in there and they played really well. They played like their brand of football, and they're going to match up with the Eagles now, which I don't think that's as an easy game as people think. We'll talk about that later, but yeah, shout out to the Giants, get a good win on the road.
Yeah, I know you can probably definitely speak to it more just because they've been in, your team's division. But Dable, man, Brian Dable just gets this team to play super hard. And that's it's almost the Dan Campbell thing. And maybe that's why I appreciate it. Because it's similar just as far as like, it seems like the players love playing for him. And they seem like no matter what happens in a game, they're never going to be mentally out of it.
Right.
And they never really were with Minnesota. I mean, that whole game they were fighting, and obviously they end up coming away with the win. But personally, like when I look at those teams' rosters, like it feels like, Minnesota's got much more star. They got the better quarterback. It seems like they have better receivers with Jefferson and Thielen, and Hawkinson's the better tight end, probably. You know what I mean? Like which shout out Hawkinson, big game, former Lion. But and even really, like, I'm sure there's some people out there that would argue, well, is Delvin Cook or Saquon? Like, they're both very solid. So, like, to me, Minnesota had a ton of pieces there. In this Giants team that a lot of people probably just didn't expect anything out of this season keeps doing this. They just keep winning. Like I didn't think they were a playoff team to start the year, let alone making it to the second round. So got to give Dable some credit, man. It's hard to come in as a new coach and do what he's doing.
Yes, absolutely. It's going to be a tough matchup for them in the next round, but that's the playoffs. I mean, you just put yourself in a position, try and win, and it's a team that's won a lot of games this year. So we'll see. All right, rounding out Sunday, kind of a weird game, a little bit ugly. Bengals, Ravens. The Bengals do win this thing at home 24-17, though there was a Hail Mary attempt that got pretty close for the Ravens to try to send this thing into OT. I guess I got to give a shout out to the Ravens just because I don't want to sit here and say the Bengals did just played bad, and that's why, I think the Ravens had a lot to do with it. This was not the normal Bengals that we're used to seeing where everybody's grittying and, doing all kinds of cool stuff in the end zone because they just weren't getting in the end zone very much. Ravens have had a great defense all year. These teams have obviously played twice already, being that they are division rivals. Shout out to the Bengals. They got it done, but I thought the Ravens did a good job just battling, hanging in there. It wasn't the prettiest game, but they messed around with, again, a backup quarterback. So
yeah, and that game came down to that fumble on the goal line. You know what I mean?
Yes, we should bring that up. Yeah. So, and that was, so it was the Ravens were driving in.
Yep,
they're about to go line. Up big, and
I think they were about to go up 7.
Yeah, it was. They would have went up 8, I think, or I don't know. Anyway, they're about to go up. Touchdown was going to be really good for them. They needed it. It was in the first half, on the 1 yard line, and Huntley, the quarterback, kind of stands up and tries to reach the ball over the goal line, and smartly the guys from the Bengals just punch it, and it goes right to, that was Hubbard, right? That the defensive end that grabbed it.
Yeah,
went 99 yards the other way and scored a touchdown and just completely flipped that game on its head.
Yeah, so I looked at the action. So that was the one that it happened in the fourth quarter. So it was a late game. Yeah, so that was.
I don't know why my brain thought that was at a different point in the game.
I mean,
so it was even huger.
Probably could have just mixed up plays. But yeah, no, it was with 11 or 12 minutes left, and they were tied at that point. And Huntley went to extend it over the goal line, and Hubbard just returned it the whole way back.
Yeah, it's extra crazy.
That was the last score of the game. You know what I mean? So if you think about it, the way Baltimore was playing defensively, you wonder if they get that touchdown, do they shut down Cincy and just
right? And here's the thing: they could have just had 3 there. So that's what hurts even more is instead of putting any points on the board, you just come away with 0. Not only that, but it's 7 the other way, which is a 14-point swing essentially. So just crazy. NFL football for you. It was a wild game, and it was fun watching. I still say that, even though it wasn't the prettiest game of the weekend, but it was a good time. Okay, so then Monday night. That's when my Cowboys were going to play, and I hated the spot, taking on the Buccaneers in Tampa on Monday night, standalone game. But the Cowboys came through. They were awesome. Everybody except Brett Maher, who is currently in federal prison, which is good because he missed 4 extra points. If he even hit 1, we would have hit the over in this one. But we were on a CD touchdown, which we got, and we were on another prop that I can't remember off the top, which also cashed. Oh, it was a Parsons sack, which just to mention the Parsons sack, it was at the end of the game. And I mean, he did get the biggest chunk out of Tom Brady. He was probably going to go down, but he definitely wasn't the guy that finished the sack. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So I thought the way it would work is they would do a half sack, but I think they did away with half sacks at some point in time because it was just too tricky to keep up with, maybe, or I'm not exactly sure. But either way,
maybe
they gave
for
them
betting purposes. It isn't. I don't know.
They might. Yeah, either way in the scorebook it says 1. It says 1.
Yeah,
so that's all. That's all I cared about. It's kind of funny, but great night with the boys. Still recovering a little bit from that night. We had a lot of fun. And, but yeah, happy for the Cowboys. Moving on.
I want to know, what would you guess Tom Brady's pass attempts were last night? Because I have it on hand.
It's a lot. It's a large number. I know that just because I was looking at their rushing stats today. Yeah. And I think Fournette had 20 yards or something, but he only had 5-7 carries. So I'm guessing it had to be 50 or something. Pass attempts.
66.
That's too much.
That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. And that's the thing that I guess I took out of it is people will look at this game and they'll be like, well, Brady threw for 351 yards. It's like, dude, he did that on 66 attempts. I mean, that's not very good. And really, when you see just how much points they scored and just what his efficiency was, because he only completed 53% of his passes, everything that if you actually watched that game and didn't just look at his yardage at the end of the game, anybody could tell you Brady did not look good. There were a couple balls that probably could have been picked. I want to say at one point they put the stat up on the screen, and this was in the third quarter, I think, that it was the Cowboys at that point had 10 or 11 pass breakups. So I don't know what it finished out with at the end of the game, but they probably had close to 15, maybe close to 20. I mean, their defense looked really good. The secondary was really, really impressive. To be honest, if there was one or two more of those that got picked or something, this game could have been even more out of hand. But
Right.
I was really impressed. I mean, Dak and Zeke and Pollard had good games, and so did CD. But I was really impressed with Dallas's defense yesterday.
Yeah.
I think that was by far the best performance I've seen out of them in a big spot like this. And that's the kind of stuff that you're looking for in the playoffs, because defense is going to carry you. If Parsons and Trayvon Diggs and a lot of those guys are really getting it going, I think that could be Dallas's kind of identity if they're going to win.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was looking it up. They had 12 pass defense, which I think is the same thing as what you were saying, but 12. Yeah. And then they did have that one interception. And I'm just hoping that my take comes true, which is this defense is really talented. It's just more of a matter of they had spots where they just weren't motivated enough, I think, and especially late in the regular season. Mm-hmm. Obviously, now it's the playoffs, so that stuff's up. Everybody's motivated now. There ain't no taking a day off or a playoff. So I liked what the Cowboys did on defense. I thought that was a pretty big story. And I think it just gave the offense confidence enough. We're going to keep coming out here. You know, we don't have to worry about the defense giving up 1,000,000 points today. We just got to go out and do our job. And like I said, the only bad thing you can take away from this game if you're a Cowboys fan is the extra point kicking. It was bad, but we did make the last one. And that's kind of cool. So it was pretty interesting because you saw Dak at one point get really frustrated. I think it was after the third miss. Slams his helmet, which he never does, especially not after a touchdown. And I didn't read it at the time, but apparently he was saying we should have went for 2 or go for 2 or whatever. You just don't see that from Dak very much. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But great performance from the boys. I'm pretty proud of them. Pretty proud.
No, I was going to say with Maher, I think he gets it going. He's too good of a kicker to not fix this by next week. You know what I mean?
He only had 3 misses all year.
Yeah,
that's what
I was saying. So I remember he was one of like the top fantasy football kickers because I had him multiple weeks, and he really didn't miss much. You're right. So he'll fix it, and if he doesn't, then who knows? But Dak probably has somewhat of a point that like, if this was a really close game, it would have been like Cowboys fans would have been ready to kill him. You know what I mean? Like,
I know.
Let's just say that was like a 1-point game at the time and he missed that, or like they would have went up 3 and he missed it and they only were up 2, something
2
like
instead,
that. You know, like
we were lucky. It wasn't a bigger deal, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And we were actually discussing today if I don't even know if this is true. Like, could he be cut and then them sign another kicker in the playoffs? I don't know that you can sign dudes in the playoffs, but maybe you can if it's a free agent. I don't know. I was wondering if they even had like maybe a kicker on the practice squad that they could kind of call up. But like you said, he's going to get it figured out. It was a little bit gusty there, but most of them were just miss hits, and you can fix that with a little practice. So we'll hope that doesn't come back to haunt the Cowboys. But you're right. If it's a close game, it definitely could have. Luckily, it wasn't. Great performance from the Cowboys. I was pretty happy for that because had some friends over, having a good time. You know, you always want something good to cheer for as well. So, there you go. So we have our matchup set for this weekend. We're going to try not to dive too deep in just because we want to have something to give the people next time we're on. Obviously, we'll have picks next time. So, you know, that takes up some time too. But just wanted to note the matchups. Jaguars, Chiefs, Kansas City, 8.5-point favorites right now, over under a 53. So one thing you'll note is that all of these totals are like 2 or 3 points higher than they would have been in the first round because the books got destroyed on overs this weekend. So wouldn't be surprised if we had a few unders this week. But Jaguars, Chiefs, Vegas thinks Chiefs roll in this one, and that's probably the safest bet. But dude, pesky Jags, we've been saying it all year. You never know. Okay, so then Saturday night, we've got Giants, Eagles, Philly, 7.5-point favorites there at home. Again, this is a divisional game. I want to pull up and see what their results were because I think Philly just beat them twice, but I don't know that 100% for sure. Yes, Philly beat them twice. The first time that was at New York, they beat them bad. And then the second time they played them, they just barely beat them. But that was because they had a backup quarterback in the game. So, and I think the Giants were resting everyone too, maybe because they had already sealed. That's what it was. Giants rested everybody, but the Eagles kind of did too, but not as much because they needed to win that game to get the 1 seed. But should be a fun little matchup.
Spread though. Another big spread.
Yeah, another big spread there on Saturday. So, you know, we'll see if the underdogs can make some noise, keep it close. Who knows? Here's a close spread, Sunday, 5:30 p.m. Pretty interesting start spot. Oh wait, I'm skipping a game. That's why the start spot's weird. So there's a 2 p.m. game, which is Bengals at Bills. Bills 5-point favorites. We'll talk about the Cowboys game at the end. Bills at home, 5-point favorites. Like I said, they kind of kicked the monkey off their back winning that first playoff game. It feels like Bengals obviously didn't play their best either, though. Interesting matchup. It's going to be a ton of hype around that game for obvious reasons. And it makes sense to play this game earlier because it is in Buffalo, and nighttime in Buffalo, I have to imagine it's pretty cold, even though the daytime's going to be cold too. But interesting matchup. I have to think it favors the Bills, but Bengals did it last year, and they've low-key been pretty good against teams like the Chiefs and the Bills, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Then we got Cowboys, 49ers, 5:30 p.m. It's a Sunday night game, 3.5-point spread, 49ers home favorites. I'm interested to watch this, obviously, because I'm a Cowboys fan, but one thing I'm looking at is I want to see how many Cowboys fans are in there. There were quite a few Cowboys fans in Tampa, but nothing like we're kind of used to. Anytime you go on the West Coast, though, and I don't mean to like stereotype West Coast people, but they tend to just not sell out the arenas. And I know for a playoff game, especially if it's the Cowboys, the tickets are going to get sold. It's just a matter of, is it going to be Cowboys fans there or is it going to be 49ers? Probably a healthy mix of both, and it should be a really fun game. Closest spread of the weekend. I already fired, just for the people, I fired Cowboys +4 and also sprinkled their money line, which was like 175. So those have already been made because I know that's where the side I'm going to be on already. I'm just get the best number I can, like
might as well.
That's exactly what happened this time. I told myself I wasn't going to bet Cowboys because I was worried about Tom Brady. Then 10 minutes before the game, I'm just firing money line. I'm firing alt spreads and everything. Yeah. So I knew it would happen. So now I'm locked in. That should be a good one.
That time on that game is different because we're used to Sunday night football is always, I guess for you it'd be like that 7:30 kick. For me, it's always like an 8:30 kick. So for me to have 6:30, you have 5:30. I know it's probably because of the West Coast thing, but wouldn't you think that would make them make the game later? Because West Coast is like, so it's a little backwards. I'm not gonna lie. They're making this game for West Coast. It would be 3:30, 4:30.
Yeah, kickoff's
not even a night game. Yeah, it's not even a night game.
Kickoff's going to be 3:30. I don't even know by the fourth quarter, maybe the sun's starting to go down, but it's not going to be dark.
I wonder if there's like a reasoning. We can look into that. Maybe we'll have an answer by Thursday. Might be
it's weird.
Weather related, but I doubt it.
That's why I read that game first when I saw the time, because I was like, oh, okay, then they're going to jam a game right behind that one. Bam, bam. But they actually went the other way with it. And I don't know if it's just because the other game, they tried to space out and kind of put it in between the two slots, like not a early game, but not a true afternoon game at 2. And then I guess it could move still. I mean, they own the network, so they could make it later if they wanted to. But interesting time, because I don't even think by the fourth quarter, like the lights are going to be on in there, but I'm not saying it's not. I don't see the sun being all the way down. Maybe by the time the game's over, but
I mean, I'm okay with it, to be honest, because there are a lot of Sunday nights where you're kind of waiting for the game to finish up because it's like, I kind of want to go to bed, especially for me on the Eastern time zone. Like some of those games are ending at like 11:30 at night. You know what I mean? Depending on – so I'm okay with it. And I wonder if maybe that's why they're doing that too, is they feel
easier on the East Coast people.
They think like the viewership would just be higher. Like anybody.
I mean, what else are we gonna be doing it? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be the late night game, I guess. So I don't know. It'll be fun. Sunday will be a lot of fun. We'll be trying to fire up spaces again. We'll have more details on the next show. This was more of the weekend review of the amazing football weekend we just had, and hopefully get another good one in. You got any kind of thoughts before we sign out?
No, I'm good. I'm looking forward to this, later this week's show, and we'll kind of get some good picks for you guys. So we'll be in the lab.
Some good picks. Going to be hard in the lab, and I'm trying to get a guest. I've got a specific guest that I have in mind, and so we'll see if we can't get that person on, and that would make it a lot of fun. But anyway, it's going to be a great time. Enjoy your week, everybody, and we will see you guys Friday morning. Peace.
Peace out.